Kumbuke ya kwamba akidi ya bunge la kitaifa inakuwa ni wabunge 50 ili kikao kuweza kuanza rasmi. Kwingineko ni kufahamisha kwamba kuna mswada wa marekebisho ya pili kuhusu kuzuia na kudhibiti saratani. Huu ni mswada nambari 45 wa mwaka 2022 ambao utakuwa unasomwa kwa mara ya pili katika vikao vya alasiri ya leo. Mbunge huu umeweza kutayarishwa na Mheshimiwa Abdul Daud ambaye ni mbunge wa Imendi Kusini. Mswada huu unalenga kurekebisha kifungu cha 5 cha sheria kuu kwa kupanua wigo wa majukumu ya taasisi ya taifa ya saratani ili kujumuisha kuhamasisha matumizi ya afya ya kielektroniki na telemedicine katika matibabu ya wagonjwa wa saratani na kutia matibabu ya wagonjwa wa saratani kama huduma ya msingi ya afya. Nikufahamisha kwamba spika wa bunge hili la taifa Mheshimiwa Daktari Moses Masika Wetangula anaingia bungeni, na ilivyo desturi baada ya kuongozwa atakuwa analiongoza bunge hili katika maombi, na kisha baada ya hapo kujua ikiwa akidi imeweza kufikiwa ili vikao hivi kuanza rasmi. Ni kurudishe moja kwa moja katika bunge la taifa.
Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetuonya nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote tutakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Do we have for them? Yes. Honorable members, we have quorum to transact business. Sergeant, sorry, clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Is Honorable Mukunji in the house? Is Honorable Gitonga Mukunji in the house? He's not there, so
the neighbor is here.
I'm not looking for his neighbor. And in the Bible, the neighbor is not necessarily the person next to you. Yes, we'll stay the communication. It was meant for Mukunji. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. Majority Leaders, you go to your papers.
Yes.
I hope your ministers are ready. Looks like we'll reach them very quickly. We should have the first minister in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 9th August 2023, afternoon sitting. 1. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates they are in. Dagoretti South, Eldama Ravine, Olkalau, Kangema, Gishugu, Kilgoris, Mwea, Maragua, Gatanga, Oldorok, Kinangop, Ndaragwa, Kigumo, Kieni, Tetu, Gilgil, Mavoko, Rarieda, Tarbo, Mathira, Budalangi, Lugari, Shinyalu, Kabuchai, Kimilili, and Sirisia. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Education. Give her the mic. Is that Christine?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Honorable.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today on Wednesday, 9th August 2023. Report of the Departmental Education, report on the Departmental Committee on Education on the study visit on digital transformation in education held in Estonia from 11th to 18th May 2023. So,
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Samuel Atande, the Honorable Member for Alego Song.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that aware that the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuff Act 2015 provides for the regulation of fertilizer importation in the country. Further aware that the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board regulates the fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and production of fertilizers. Noting that the country currently relies heavily on imported fertilizer due to inadequate local production capacity. Further noting that the low local production leads to high costs for farmers, reducing their profits and results in unhealthy reliance on imported fertilizer. Concerned that this scenario threatens the country's food security in case of supply disruptions and discourages local production. Recognizing that local fertilizer production could lead to improved fertilizer quality, increased crop yields, and a reduction in environmental harm caused by the use of substandard fertilizers. Recalling that the country has the potential to produce fertilizer that could meet the country's domestic demand and also supply the regional market. Further recognizing that there is need for the government to work with local producers to develop high-quality fertilizer tailored to the needs of Kenyan farmers and crops. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, supports and promotes local fertilizer manufacturing industries by investing in research and development to bolster the domestic fertilizer manufacturing sector. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Atande. The member from Mbeere North, Geoffrey Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion, Mr. Speaker. The motion is on the policy framework for government-to-government sourcing of electricity equipment and on connection and bidding of electricity infrastructure. That acknowledging that Kenya Vision 2030 identifies energy as an enabler to achieving socio-economic and political pillars, and that access to affordable, reliable, and quality power is crucial for economic growth and development. Aware that prompt connectivity to affordable and stable electricity power is an essential enabler for spurring rural economies, thus contributing to national growth and development towards attainment of Vision 2030, recognizing that the Kenya Power Company Limited is the national electricity utility company responsible for connection and bidding of electricity to the customers throughout the country, and is also undertake electricity licensing, metering, billing, offering emergency electricity services, and customer relations. Concerned that the cost of electricity in the country has increased significantly over the years, thus burdening household and industrial users with high cost of production. Further concerned that the protected chain of stages that characterize the processing of new electricity connections, coupled with delays in importation of critical electricity connections, equipment such as transformers, conductors, and meters, overseas cause and lead tape that result in inordinate delays in concluding new connections to electricity. Considering that the conflicted process of connection to electricity and attendant management challenges that grapple the Kenya Power in managing electricity in the country bear serious implication on costs of living and retard economic growth by making businesses less competitive, thereby diverting potential investment to other economies in the region. Cognizant of the fact that government-to-government procurement is an important factor in trading and effort towards increasing economic integration, and bears better outcome in capping supplies issues in order to increase operational efficiency and impacting the overall prices of electricity. This House resolves that the Minister of Energy to formulate a policy framework on government-to-government agreement to facilitate local assembly of essential electricity infrastructure such as transformers, conductors, meters, and other attendant equipment in order to address unwarranted supply issues and to guarantee quality assurance of the equipment. And 2, formulate management contract with contractors, with private entities to manage power connection and bidding services on behalf of Kenya Power with a view to enhance efficiency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Second.
Thank you, Honorable Ruku.
Second notice.
Hold on. I hope you'll not take as long as you have taken. Okay, next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion on formulation of a government-to-government framework for importation and distribution of essential foodstuff and goods. That aware that Kenya National Trading Corporation, KNTC Limited, is a state corporation in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, recording that KNTC was established under Session Paper number 1 of 1965 in recognition of the importance of trade and industry in economic development of then newly independent Kenya, noting that among other functions, the corporation acts as the procurement and agent of the government and participate in promoting of wholesale and retail trade with a view of strengthening and promoting supply chain of essential products in the country. Appreciating that cooperation plays a crucial role in supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises sector through the supply of raw materials, provision of consultant services, and the identification of markets for raw materials, provision of consultants, provision of consultant services and identification of market for their product, concerned that the price of foodstuff and other essential basic commodities in the country have incredibly risen, causing majority of Kenya's household financial distress in the face of surging inflationary pressure, weakening sharing, high cost of fossil fuel, supply chain gaps, declining agricultural productivity orchestrated by high input prices, climate change, and variability. Concerned that the decline of local food production has been progressively pushing Kenya to the edge of becoming a net importer of foodstuff, noting that the prices of foodstuff and other essential goods imported into the country by merchants have also been on the rise, acknowledging that government-to-government arrangements and frameworks are important drivers in trade, economic integration, and bears better outcome in pushing downward pressure on cost for goods and stabilizing market supply condition. Now, therefore, this House now resolves that the Ministry of Industry and Trade and Investment urgently establish a policy framework to facilitate government-to-government contractual agreement for importation and distribution of foodstuff and other essential goods to the country through Kenya Trading Corporation Limited, with a view to normalizing market supply condition and prices for such basic commodities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Ruku. Clerk, skip Order 7 for a minute. Go to Order 8, 9.
Order number 8, the Kenya National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to establish the Kenya National Library Service, to provide for the management of the Kenya National Library Service and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the National Disaster Risk Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to establish the National Disaster Risk Management Authority and County Disaster Risk Management Committees, to provide a legal framework for the coordination of disaster risk management activities and for connected purposes.
Clerk, go to Order number 13.
Order number 13, motion, consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of state corporations, regulatory and governance agencies, resumption of debate.
For good management of time, honorable members, I notice the Honorable Eve Obara is in the House. You had 4 minutes to go. I advise you to compress your presentation and finish in 2 minutes. I want the mover to reply. We close this debate and go to other businesses. You spent the whole of yesterday, I think, over 3 hours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I did support the report yesterday, and I was as concerned as the committee on issues of inefficiency in the management of the state corporations that were audited. Mr. Speaker, after so many years, and we know clearly what the PFM Act says about timely submission of audited reports and timely and right submissions of documents that are required for audit purposes. Mr. Speaker, it's about time that we called out some of these institutions. We cannot be receiving year in and year out reports of inefficiency. The President himself said that there are many in leadership positions that are clueless of what is happening in their organizations. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, it's about time that if you do not perform, because I believe that there are performance contracts that they sign, how can they get away every year being renewed despite the fact that the performance is poor? Mr. Speaker, finally, on inclusivity, there were grave issues of organizations employing people of one or two communities at the expense of the rest of Kenyans. We have the NCIC Commission, Mr. Speaker. Can they please take action on these organizations? I don't think this is something that is so difficult to do. They should be able to do and make sure that in line with the requirement that no one community should be beyond 30% of the total. Thank you very much. Once again, I support. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Honorable Eve. Now, mover, you can reply in the shortest time possible.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, I want to sincerely thank the members of this August House for their immense support, words of appreciation, and support to the work of our committee as we tabled our report. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to appreciate my committee members who are able and made our work very easy. I'll begin by my deputy who recently gave us a bundle of joy, Honorable Esuda Naisula, Honorable Chief Romodo Wangale Munga, Honorable Alpha Ondieki Miruka, Honorable Sigei Francis Kipiegon, Honorable Tunui Joseph Kipkosgei, Honorable Tonkei Rebecca, Honorable Kirima Moses, Honorable Mashukuru James Githua, Honorable Kiritho Kiili Daniel, Honorable Bonaya Mumina Golo, Honorable Zambia Engineer Kithua, Honorable Invinji Shadrack Mwiti, Honorable Kakai Bisau Morris, Honorable Mwenje Mark Samuel Murithi. They've been of good help, Chair. If you realize they've always been in the House and they've always attended our committee meetings, I want to sincerely appreciate them. Just briefly.
Yes, Honorable Milemba.
Oh, really not intentionally to interrupt. My friend was on the floor, but somewhat, Honorable Speaker, three previous honorable members whom you have given a chance to speak are continuously referring to you as chair. Then I noticed what is really happening. This is the Speaker of the National Assembly. We saw it with the earlier Speaker, Ma'am Ubara, Honorable, and it's also being repeated. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Wamboka, you are the chair of your committee. I am not the chair of this parliament.
I didn't say you are the chair.
You did.
Then I'm sorry, Chair. Despite being a first time, Honorable Speaker,
Yes.
I understand very well that you are the Speaker of this session, but thank you, Honorable Speaker, nevertheless. But you know, I share very many other forums with our Speaker, where he's the chair, so you will kindly bear up with me. Honorable Speaker, I will just touch on a few issues. I want to conclude in less than 10 minutes.
I give
On some of the
5 minutes.
On some of the issues,
more.
on some of the issues raised by honorable members, Mr. Makali, Honorable Makali, for instance, observed that some of our recommendations are very lenient. I come from a community that practices circumcision. And for the circumciser to be effective, the handler must also be very effective. In this case, Honorable Speaker, we rely heavily on, we examine books of the Auditor General.
Yes, Honorable.
That is where it begins.
Order, there's a point of order. The mic.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 87. Is it in order for Honorable Anami to bring issues of circumcision on matters that are very serious, that deal with public accounts, Mr. Speaker? What is the relevance between circumcision and what he has just presented? Because I listened to him very carefully when he was making his presentation. None of the institutions he made reference to conducts any sort of circumcision. So, Mr. Speaker, could the chair be relevant in his response to what the member said? In fact, I also listened very carefully to all the other members. None of them touched on circumcision, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Amboka.
Honorable Speaker.
There's a mic next to you.
I don't want to disrupt the good doctor. Please give me the mic.
The doctor can shift. There you are.
Honorable Speaker, I want to indulge the member. Just kindly listen to my presentation. It's about literature. It's about literature. What I said is that the circumciser can be very good, but if the handler is not good enough, then the process of circumcising cannot be good. Just in this case, the committee may be very good, but if the reports we are examining from the Auditor General, they have not done a good job. I mean, that's what I meant. Please understand, and next time don't interrupt unnecessarily. Honorable member. Honorable Speaker, I wish to address several pertinent issues raised during the debate which are critical to the performance of the committee. Firstly, on the instance of non-compliance with the sections of the Constitution and the PFM Act, I relate with the concern raised about certain officers not adhering to Public Financial Management Act. This is a serious matter that undermines the effectiveness of our governance system. To rectify this issue, we have recommended that the National Treasury supports various institutions with capacity building sessions to relevant officers, as well as facilitate secondment of officers to support these institutions, especially on matters related to financial accountability. This is one of the ways the committee is continuously working towards ensuring the future audit reports will not have glaring errors touching on non-compliance with the law. Honorable Speaker, future recommendations will give specific action to be taken against the various accounting officers who are found in breach of the articles of the Constitution, articles of the PFM Act, and the relevant laws that govern this country. And that way, every accounting officer will know that the Public Investment Committee is watching, Parliament is watching, the legislative arm is watching. Honorable Speaker, going forward, the committee has ordered for various inquiries into matters it feels requires in-depth investigations. This will zero down on the specific matters at hand, specific violations, and therefore the committee pronounces itself on specific actions to be taken against the relevant accounting officers. Honorable Speaker, on the matter of ethnicity, the committee recently met with the Public Service Commission to get their feedback on the steps they are taking to address ethnic imbalance, as well as shortage of staff as a result of factors like natural attrition. As such, the committee is looking into possible interventions to address this menace in public service. Honorable Speaker, it's also painful to note, I was listening to the Honorable MP County Turkana and my sister Honorable Wako Naomi. When they were crying, for instance, the MP for Turkana said, since independence, my sister, we've not had any CEO from the Turkana community, and I feel them. And I feel Honorable Naomi Wako. But you are in the government. I want to encourage you to use now your various forums to tell the President, William Ruto, to implement some of these things. Because I feel you, a Turkana is also a Kenyan. I feel you, a resident of Mandera is also a Kenyan. And therefore we urge the government of Kenya Kwanza to be proactive even in trying and helping some of its members of this House. Honorable Speaker, the committee also takes note of the issues of timeliness in the deliberation of its support. This has been rectified by splitting the PICs into 3 committees. And for the record, Honorable Speaker, my committee is dealing with the 96th agency. We've already tabled 2 reports. In the coming weeks, we are also going to table 2 other reports which are ready. So I think in terms of scoring our committee, we deserve an A, Honorable Speaker. Moving forward, I assure this House that we are committed to upholding the highest standards of accountability and efficiency. Our mission is to ensure that public investment in governance and education yield the best possible outcomes for the citizens of our nation. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I now beg to reply. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order. Take your seats. Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on Governance and Education on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of state corporations, regulatory and governance agencies for the financial year 2018-2019, 2019-2020, and 2020-2021, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. We go back to order number 7.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, at order number 7, honorable members, we have present in the House 2 cabinet secretaries, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki and the Honorable Owalo. They are coming here to respond to your concerns. I think the issues raised by Gitonga Mukunji, the member for Manyata, but raised by many of you on the operations and activities of a company called WorldCoin and the national security and recent cyber attack on key government systems. I would suggest, I have a copy of a statement here co-signed by the 2 ministers. They'll choose between them who will present the statement. Once they're done, I'll allow you members to make your interventions with the supplementary questions, starting with Mukunji, who raised the issue. And of course, priority normally goes to your leaders if they are interested. We will take this matter up to 3:45, latest 4. Then we bring in the Minister for Defense, who is waiting to answer your questions. So the 2 ministers, who of you will have the first bite? Honorable Owalo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, for granting us the opportunity to come and interface with you over this very pertinent issue in the interest of the Kenyan public. We are here pursuant to a query raised by the Member of Parliament for Manyata constituency, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Gitonga Mukunji, who had sought for a statement from the Cabinet Secretaries Interior and National Administration, and the Cabinet Secretary, Information, Communications, and the Digital Economy, on the activities of the foreign data collection company, WorldCoin. Honorable Speaker, on the 3rd day of August 2023, the Honorable Leader of Majority Party issued a response. Consequently, it was directed that both of us, in our capacity as Cabinet Secretaries, attend the plenary to respond to the issues raised by the honorable members. We stand by the statement that was earlier on issued by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Mr. Speaker, but over and above that, we further state as follows. On the question pertaining to whether or not the safety of the data collected by WorldCoin is secure, Honorable Speaker, we are glad to let the House know that the government has implemented the following strategies to ensure safe data management practices by both foreign and local entities, Mr. Speaker. One, the government has established and operationalized the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in conformity to the Data Protection Act 2019, Mr. Speaker. Further, the government has undertaken development and publication of the data protection regulations as at 31st December 2021. The government has also been conducting regular inspections and audits of entities registered as data controllers, Mr. Speaker, and data processors, and also undertaking regular investigations on breaches of the Data Protection Act 2019. In the same vein, Mr. Speaker, the government has undertaken development and implementation of personal data training curriculum to enhance levels of compliance. And finally, on a continuous basis, the government has undertaken public sensitization on data privacy and cyber hygiene. In addition to the above, Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy has constituted a committee to look into regulatory reforms informed by emerging technologies, including but not limited to digital currencies such as cryptocurrency, Mr. Speaker. This is informed by the fact that the operational environment is dynamic, and as factors in play in that operational environment change, it is also incumbent upon us as government, Mr. Speaker, to continuously look at ways and means of reviewing our policies, laws, and regulations in line with changes and emerging issues in the operational environment. On the second question, pertaining to who authorized the biometric data collection by WorldCoin and whether or not the correct procedures were followed, Mr. Speaker, authorization of biometric data collection based on the Data Protection Act, Mr. Speaker, the government registered WorldCoin on 18th April 2023 as a data controller pursuant to that act and other attendant regulations. An entity processing personal data, Mr. Speaker, is required to identify itself with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner by registering with the office, Mr. Speaker. And pursuant to the Data Protection Act 2019, an entity should therefore make an application for registration as a data controller where it determines the purpose and means of handling personal data. Conversely, an entity will make an application for registration as a data processor where it handles personal data on behalf of a data controller based on a contractual obligation with the data controller. An entity, further, Mr. Speaker, may register as a data controller and data processor at the same time. Informed by the above, Mr. Speaker, An application for a certificate of registration only signifies that the entity has complied with Section 18 and 19 of the Act for purposes of registration. But it does not in any manner endorse an entity's compliance with the Data Protection Act or its subsidiary regulations, nor is it a valid license for an organization to operate in Kenya or authorize the operations of an entity. What we are trying to say here, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a divergence between mere registration and operationalization in conformity to the law. Registration does not imply that a company operating in Kenya has been given a blanket authority to behave in the manner that it deems appropriate. So, in terms of operationalization, there are attendance rules and regulations and even guidelines which, upon registration, an entity is expected to conform to. The certificate simply signifies that an entity is known to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and that it processes personal data of persons located in Kenya. Further, it does not amount to certification of the processing activities of an entity or serve as an endorsement from the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner of an entity's compliance with other provisions of the Act or any other laws, including but not limited to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which is our supreme law, Mr. Speaker. A registration certificate was therefore issued to WorldCoin following receipt of the requisite documentation pursuant to the registration regulations. On the third question, which seeks clarification as to whether or not safety guarantees have been put in place to ensure that the data will exclusively be used for the intended purpose and that citizens will suffer no loss, Mr. Speaker, the government on 30th May 2023 issued a directive to WorldCoin to cease the processing of irises and facial recognition data in the country. A further directive was issued on 2nd August 2023, Mr. Speaker, to WorldCoin to cease all operations in Kenya. In addition, the government has sought preservation orders from the courts to enable completion of the ongoing investigations by a multi-agency team so that, informed by the preservation orders, WorldCoin is compelled to preserve all the personal data of Kenyans for the duration of the investigations, Mr. Speaker. It is also important to note, Mr. Speaker, that prior to the aforestated, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner established that the company had set up booths across the country to scan the irises of interested Kenyans in April 2022. And this was in anticipation of the launch of their cryptocurrency the week of 24th July 2023. Based on that, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner commenced its assessment of the organization in May 2022. And in the course of this assessment, the office initially suspended the operations of WorldCoin for a period of 60 days in which the company was to submit a data protection impact assessment in accordance with the Data Protection Act to enable the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ascertain the lawful basis and safeguards adopted by WorldCoin. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner conducted a spot check in May 2023 and again raised concerns with the processing activities of the entity and subsequently wrote to the entity in May 2023 directing immediate cessation of processing of sensitive personal data, namely irises, facial data of the data subjects. The office further directed that WorldCoin safely restricts the processing of any data that had already been processed and advised the office of the safeguard placed on the restricted data, Mr. Speaker. On the next question, as to whether or not the government has established the ultimate objective of this exercise and for what purpose the data was being collected, Mr. Speaker, this is subject to the ongoing investigations. The government is currently undertaking investigations to establish the intended objectives of the exercise by WorldCoin. And based on the results of that investigation, Mr. Speaker, we'll remain ready and available to come back and report to the House in that regard. On the next question, seeking to ascertain whether or not prior public participation to inform the public of the risks involved in the exercise was undertaken, Mr. Speaker, it is the responsibility of individual registered entities to undertake public sensitization as opposed to that of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner subsequent to the registration. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, we are not aware of any public participation carried out by WorldCoin. And consequently, the government has issued statements cautioning the public on the operations of WorldCoin in this regard, Mr. Speaker. On the next question pertaining to the source of the money that is being paid to participants who stand to benefit from the exercise by WorldCoin, Mr. Speaker, this again is one of the components of the terms of reference of the multi-agency team that is currently investigating the source of the money, Mr. Speaker. And we believe that the objective therefrom will be determined through this exercise. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member also sought comment from government on matters concerning cybersecurity attacks, and in this regard, we state as follows. It is indeed true, Mr. Speaker, that the e-citizen platform was temporarily affected by a threat that rendered it intermittently unavailable for 3 subsequent days, Mr. Speaker. That service interruption was caused by a distributed denial of services, commonly known as DDoS attack, where the intended hackers sent a flood of service requests, meaning more than the normal levels of request, through the IP address connections to the e-citizen servers with the intention of jamming the connection and making it non-responsive, Mr. Speaker. The government, through the Communications Authority of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, coordinates the Kenya National Computer Incident Response Team, which is a multi-agency cybersecurity monitoring center. And this center was instrumental in tracking the DDoS attack and providing relevant advisory support for purposes of intervention. What we are saying here, ladies and gentlemen, or honorable members, is that there was an attempted attack, but informed by the elaborate risk mitigation framework around the e-citizen platform that the government has deployed, put in place, that attack was unsuccessful. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we are glad also to report that the e-citizen platform has now reverted back to optimal capacity utilization, and Kenyans are consuming the services as before or as envisaged. Mr. Speaker, the government also has a standing multi-agency committee that in a proactive manner addresses the cybersecurity threats and it mitigates cyber attacks risk, Mr. Speaker. And that committee entails membership from the Ministry of Information, Communications and the Digital Economy, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, the Konza Technopolis, Kenya Airports Authority, Communications Authority of Kenya, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, and the ICT Authority. What we are saying here, Mr. Speaker, is that we are aware that in the course of rapid digitalization, we were aware from the onset that we were likely to be exposed to cyber attacks. And rather than we waiting to be reactive, we put in place an elaborate risk mitigation framework in a proactive manner with a view to mitigating any risks that could occur. In addition also, Mr. Speaker, the government has taken the following steps to mitigate the emerging cybersecurity challenges in a sustainable manner moving forward. One, we have added an additional layer of technology security to the eCitizen platform. Two, we have redirected internet traffic to a different web application firewall with a view to filtering traffic before it hits the eCitizen platform. Three, we are undertaking continuous monitoring and visibility of the system so that we are able to scan all that is going on within the system, Mr. Speaker. We are also patching and updating the underlying operating system and the platform itself. Equally, Mr. Speaker, we are upgrading all applications running the services to current releases. And these are ideally the applications that are installed to run the single sign-on as well as the payment gateway, Mr. Speaker. We have also added the bandwidth capacity with a view to enhancing the capacity of the platform so that the system has got optimal levels of capacity to support requests from citizens, Mr. Speaker. And finally, on a continuous basis, based on best case practices elsewhere, we are entering into collaborations and partnerships with other jurisdictions as far as cybersecurity management is concerned, Mr. Speaker. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I wish to confirm that the government has put in place an elaborate framework to ensure that the eCitizen platform is stable and able to process and provide citizenry with the required services as the government also continues to onboard services in line with our digitalization agenda. The net effect of this statement, Mr. Speaker, is that we will continue pursuing our digitalization agenda, while on a continuous basis we are also ensuring that there is an elaborate risk mitigation framework to ascertain both data privacy and data security, Mr. Speaker. Moving forward, the government, in collaboration with other stakeholders, has proposed a review of our institutional framework in regard to cybersecurity so that we strengthen our cyberspace, including but not limited to the monitoring, evaluation, and reporting mechanisms, Mr. Speaker. We shall also continue to create cybersecurity awareness and capacity building at all levels of government and amongst the critical stakeholder segment of the Kenyan public. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We submit.
Right. Mukunji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You will note several interventions, then you will be called upon to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I wish to say thank you to our CSs for that elaborate statement, capturing every question and statement we seeked as this House. And Honorable Speaker, while I was raising this question, I knew it is a wake-up call to our government and also us as a House to see how we can be prepared for the future, and because future, Honorable Speaker, is digital. Honorable Speaker, I've listened keenly, and I feel the department's concern are well prepared to handle these issues. And Honorable Speaker, there is always a risk when it comes to digitization.
I've given you an opportunity to ask clarification.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Instead, you are justifying what you have.
I want to say that while we are talking about the preparedness of any occurrence, I would like to know whether it's possible that there are countries interested in our data that are taking advantage of us, Honorable Speaker, considering this company was denied access of data from another country, but it is comfortably working here, and not only on the issue of WorldCoin, but also a lot of data from our people was picked through their other company called ChatGPT. Honorable Speaker, and the other question is, I saw the site has been pulled down, the WorldCoin site. I would like to know whether we can have the CS giving us more light on why the site shut down, and at the point of shutting down, what is it that they had, and was it stored in this country? Was it stored in the cloud servers, or have they gone ahead and checked on what is on their servers? The other question, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of the multi-agent preparation, multi-agent that the CS said he has prepared in terms of looking at the issues of attacks on cybersecurity. I would like to know the composition of it, or is a department thing, or does it involve foreigners, or it is locals? Because, Honorable Speaker, the key thing here is we are going a place where we can have warfare that involves our data and our programs that government is doing digitally. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yutonga Morugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, on this particular day, we woke up to long queues on the roads. The roads were blocked, pathways were blocked, and there was brisk business at KICC. The question I have for the Cabinet Secretary is, was there a lapse in intelligence service? Because what these people were doing must have been advertised. That is how they got Kenyans to go and get the service. Now we are told there are investigations that are being done as regards what exactly they were doing. Was there a lapse in our intelligence service so that we allowed somebody to do what possibly was illegal when actually we ought to have known and we ought to have stopped them from doing it? Thank you.
Thank you. And Minister, you also, from your statement, members raised serious questions last week. You say that the Data Protection Commissioner directed this company to cease operating in May. And on 2nd August, they were attracting phenomenal queues at KICC. Was there a lapse somewhere? Irene Mayaka?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question goes to the CS, Eli Dowalo. And I just want to ask, considering
the interests are many, so you ask one.
Yes, it's just one question. Considering the fact that the rest of the world is revolutionary from the 4th industrial estate to the 5th industrial revolution, and we are still backtracking in the country, what measures have you put in place to ensure that we are striking a balance between innovation in technology and just ensuring there's public safety in matters cryptocurrency and WorldCoin? And in relation to the fact that there's already sound alarm out there on different tech magazines on the issues and the risks associated with WorldCoin. So how are you going to balance the two? Thank you.
Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this matter of WorldCoin, I want to thank the ministers for coming up with quick answers, because this time is of the essence, because we must avoid condemning any investor without completing our investigations. Mr. Speaker, on the question of public participation, the CS has said that it is not the responsibility of the government agent to be able to carry out public participation, that it was actually a responsibility of the investor. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that is outrightly wrong, because the Article 10 of the Constitution, which deals with matters public, indicates that one of the values and principles is public participation. So it is the responsibility of the government to have carried out public participation, to understand what this institution was coming to do, so that they can be able to protect Kenyans in case there is anything that is out of the ordinary. But Mr. Speaker, my two questions, quick ones, is that sometime last year, I think there was a rejection in an application for licensing. And now later on this year, sometime in May, there was a license. What changed, between last year and now, so that they could allow the change? And then noting that technology changes, and technology is very volatile and very fluid. Is it possible that this data has already left the boundaries of this country, and that we are addressing matters that are already, overtaken by time? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, the Honorable Ministers. On the date of this happening, and let me thank the Minister for Interior for having stopped. But then it looked like a Pearl Harbor to you, because you didn't seem to have known that we would wake up and would have all those queues, not only at KICs, but everywhere. So how safe are Kenyans if you'll have those stopgap measures of such a happening of such a high magnitude, only for you to come in and stop? But above all, the two of you as ministers, why you've been called here as a duo, is that you seem to disagree on what exactly should be done on the matter concerning wild coin. Tell us, why did that come up? Thank you.
I'll give to the Honorable Kaluma, then ministers, you respond to that, then we'll do another round.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Section 974 of the Companies Act require all foreign companies to be registered before they can do business in the country. And there is very heavy punishment, because it makes it a criminal offense for such company, any foreign company, to so act before registration. So the question, Honorable Speaker, is, was this particular company registered as a foreign company with the Registrar of Companies? And if so, what actions has the relevant ministry taken against the officers of the company, particularly the local ones, since this event?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister, before you respond, allow me to acknowledge the following schools quickly in our galleries. Kionek Primary School from Kinangop, Nyandarua. Mini School and Daycare from Kisumu Central, Kisumu. Luak Girls Boarding and Primary School from Rarieda, Siaya. Thanantu Primary School from Tarakaniti. Dries Farm Secondary School from Ainapkoi, Uasin Gishu. Kariani Secondary School from Maragua, Muranga. Kimende Primary School from Lari, Kiambu. And Sasumua Primary School from Kinangop, Nyandarua. On my behalf and on behalf of all members of the House, we welcome the schools to Parliament. Minister.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I would like to respond to some of the clarifications that have been sought by members in the following manner. First, we agree with the member who has said that as a country, we must balance the need for us to move with the rest of the world where it is going in terms of technology, and all innovations in the technology space but balance that with our national interest and our national security. And that discussion, that debate is a national debate for all of us, all arms of government, including Parliament, so that we strike the right balance, so that we don't roll back from where we need to go into the future, but on the other hand, we don't endanger our national security. So I concur with those sentiments. Number two, Honorable Speaker, on the question whether the Business Registration Services Department or the Registrar of Business Names had registered this company, the answer is in the negative. However, I would like to bring to the attention of the House, Honorable Speaker, that this entity appeared to have carried its operations through a Kenyan agency. In other words, the company itself, although the company had been registered as a controller of data, the actual operations of processing data and harvesting data seems to have been coordinated through an agency, a properly registered business owned and managed by Kenyans. And I think that clarification would be important. Nevertheless, the fact that officials of WorldCoin visited Kenya, and so far we have established that they carried out certain activities around supervising what was going on, definitely implies liability on their part, whether or not the entity was involved directly or not. Number three, Honorable Speaker, it has been asked by one of the distinguished members of this House whether the intelligence knew, and I think two members, the member for Tharaka and the member for Emuhaya, they raised the question of intelligence. I would like to say again, just like the issue of balancing innovation and security, ordinarily security agencies do not interfere with businesses and operations and everyday activities unless there is reason to. When this company began its operations that attracted crowds, I think it was on a Saturday, reports were made, and the following day on Sunday, very early when we were doing our morning briefs from across the country, it was brought to the attention of the Cabinet Secretary for Interior that on the previous Saturday there were these activities in 2 or 3 locations in Kenya. And we directed immediately that the activities associated with these people and this entity be put on the radar. They continued on Sunday, and a report again was made in the early morning briefs of Monday. And by then, it was in our determination by that time, we had formed the opinion that the activities of this company could not continue. And that's why when they did the third activity at KICC, we did not even allow them to go. And again, in answer to the concern raised by the member for Tharaka, it was not necessary to stop people from assembling, but it was necessary for us to stop people from committing crime. And we stopped and asked and dispersed that congregation on that day. And the rest is history. The following day, again, based on the daily reports, we were very clear that these people could not be allowed to continue with what they are doing. In other words, Honorable Speaker, from where I sit as the Interior Minister of the country, I'm satisfied that we were cautious enough without disrupting business and people's activities, and we acted timely and timeously in our view. Lastly, so that the other issues can be responded to by my colleague, the CS for ICT, on the issue as to whether perhaps there's anything else we could have done. I think there was a general feeling that perhaps the government could have acted faster. I would like to say that generally we've made very good progress, and we were able to freeze at the point where the red flag was raised. We have frozen the movement of any person, whether Kenyan or foreign, associated with that activity. And we are on our radar, all the people associated with this enterprise, with this entity, even those who are abroad, and we are using our legal instruments on mutual legal assistance to ensure that those people, as is likely to be the case, will be held accountable. We believe, without preempting the investigations where we are, Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the House and the country that we believe that crimes have been committed. Crimes against the Data Protection Acts, crimes against privacy of the people of Kenya, crimes within the Penal Code, and we will hold those who have committed those crimes accountable, whether they're Kenyans or not. So we have frozen and we have on our radar all the people of interest. Some of them, especially the local ones, have recorded statements. We'll also be requesting the surrender of those who are outside our territory so that they can also record statements. And finally, that we believe that what happened on the e-Citizens platform was an attempt to hack, was not really hacking, but there was a serious attempt to hack into the system. We have taken serious upscaling of the system under the NC4 arrangement, which brings together the Interior Ministry as the coordinating agency, Department of Defense, ICT, and NIS. And I want to assure the people of Kenya, we should not fear technology, but we should be very alert so that technology does not bring our national interest into disarray. So, Honorable Speaker, I think there is no cause of alarm on both issues, the WorldCoin issue, the issue of the attempted hacking into our e-Citizen platform. We are alert and we remain amenable to the input of Parliament so that we can improve our systems and serve our country better. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Eliud Owalo, you have something to add?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, just a few more pertinent issues to clarify to honorable members. Honorable Omboko Milemba alluded to a possible difference in the stance taken by myself and my colleague from the Ministry of Interior. I want to state that at no point in the course of this episode has there been a discordance between the position I took and that of the CS responsible for the functional mandate of Interior and Security. What I did state one morning during a TV interview was that at the point when WorldCoin was being registered, they had met the threshold, the prerequisites necessary for purposes of registration. There's a difference between the bare minimum requirements that you need to possess for purposes of registration and conformity to the attendant rules, regulations, and operational guidelines. Mr. Speaker, mere registration is not a blanket certificate for non-conformity to the operational rules and guidelines. And this is why, on a continuous basis, upon registration, there are mechanisms through which government monitors the conformity or otherwise to the attendant rules and regulations. But I did also state that morning that there were investigations going on. In the course of operationalization, certain issues had emerged. And as government, we were looking at issues pertaining to conformity to the set rules and guidelines. There were issues pertaining to security. There were also issues pertaining to policy, laws, and regulations, which we were attending to as government. And in the course of that very day, government was going to take action. And that is exactly what my colleague CS Professor Kithure Kindiki did in conformity to what I had stated earlier on. Two, Mr. Speaker, was the issue of whether or not foreigners could be interested in our data. Granted, data is the new oil, and we cannot block our eyes from the possible interest in our data by foreign entities. But I believe that as we speak, that is subject to the ongoing investigations, and at the tail end of that exercise, we will be able to ascertain the authenticity or otherwise of those fears pertaining to foreign interest in our data. And once that is done, we will make that information available to both Parliament and the larger Kenyan public, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, it is subject to the ongoing investigations. I believe those are the two other issues that, on the issue of innovation and security. Mr. Speaker, innovation is constant in the world of today because we are operating in a dynamic operational environment where technology is the in thing, technology is in the horizon. Kenya as a country cannot be an exception. What we need to do is to ensure that as we innovate, as we embrace technology, we are also simultaneously ensuring that we don't expose the country unwarrantedly to possible cyber attacks. And this is why we are putting in place an elaborate mechanism, risk mitigation framework, to ensure that as we digitalize our records and digitalize our services, we are not exposing ourselves to cyber attacks, but conversely, we are putting in place an elaborate risk mitigation framework. The issue of the composition of the multi-agency team, that team entails membership from various facets of the Kenyan government, Mr. Speaker.
That has been answered by Kindiki.
Thank you.
Dido Raso.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to pose to the CSs. There are almost believed to be over 4 million Kenyans who are trading in Bitcoins. And what happened recently, where the iris was being scanned, actually it is believed to be the most intrusive data gathering. And it also borders on what is called collection of data for artificial intelligence. So for that reason, if we are saying that by the next 10 years, everything in Kenya will be on e-government, e-this, e-that. So for me as a legislator, the question I wish to pose to you is how much are we ahead in terms of saying, yes, there must be a red line that Kenyans should be not asked for this or that, because the banks can go for this, or any entity. You can imagine the collection of this data was done because Kenyans were being paid $49. And I think that is really absurd. So for that reason, the Minister for ICT, tell us on the issue of artificial intelligence, and that Kenyans are not being used as some sort of a data collection entity for a specific reason, much beyond business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Give Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na swali langu linaenda kwa mawaziri wote wawili. Ilianza kwanza na M-Pesa, watu wakawa wanaingia wanaibia wananchi pesa. Ikaingia kuna mmoja alijilipa pesa kama mbunge wa bunge hili, na ilikuwa kumbe ni story alflela ulela. Mwisho mmenyamaza mpaka imefika kuwa taifa la Kenya tunapoteza takwimu zetu, tunapata watu wameingia kwenye system na Kenya inakuwa kabisa iko blackout. Nataka nimuulize waziri wa usalama, umesema vile ulivyofanya usalama katika mambo ya maandamano ukawa successful. Mimi nataka nikuulize katika data ya Kenya ambayo ni muhimu, manake hata Shakahola pia ilikupata off guard na hii pia imekupata off guard. Unaweza kuambia nini wa Kenya mwaka mzima ambao umemaliza kuwa usalama wa Kenya uko thabiti katika mikono yako? Asante sana.
The member for Kimilili. Give him a functioning mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a very simple question. By the time that this company was applying registration, it was evident that other governments were cracking them down. Why did the government of Kenya fail to carry out due diligence before they allowed this company to operate in Kenya? This is very important, Honorable Speaker, because it will therefore mean that tomorrow or the day after, somebody can come here, register a company, even harvest kidneys for Kenyans and leave this country. The second question, Honorable Speaker, is that the two ministers have used the word investigations more than 5 times. I want them to assure this House that the government of Kenya is going to invest in crime prevention so that we don't behave as if we are reactionary to carry out investigations. Maybe these people who came here, the WorldCoin, they have already gotten what they wanted. They have shut down their system and they have left. So the ministers should assure Kenyans that they are going to invest heavily in crime prevention so that we don't hear these things about investigations are going on. The crime has been committed already. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Makale Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I will ask only 2 questions.
Ask one.
Okay, let me say this, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
The first question, Honorable Speaker, I'm just wondering, and I'm a person who has a finance background, the issue of cryptocurrency and the issue of the eyes, where is the connection? The second question, Honorable Speaker, and allow me to ask this important, Honorable Speaker. The second question, Honorable Speaker, this country, would I be in order to say there is a disconnect between intelligence collection and what the security arms are doing? Because I see us being reactive instead of being proactive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member next to Kamket. Member for Kajiado North, yes. Give him the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the CSS present, and specifically the CS Kindiki. Under our laws, bribery is a crime. The people who are the WorldCoin people, they were paying a token for them to get something from you. And
7,000 cannot be a token. That's a lot of money.
Yes, they were, my apologies, Mr. Speaker. They were paying 7,000. That means that is bribery, because they are giving you something for them to get something from you. Out of the charges that you have said they are crimes that have been committed, I would want you to come out clear that you will charge somebody for bribery, because bribery is against the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Number 2, on the information that they picked from people, this House, when we asked this question, we asked ourselves, where did they take it? Where is that information? The statement, Mr. Speaker, did not bring out the issue of where is the information that they had already picked from people, because even as we talk of the future, what of what they did on that particular day on the specific individuals. And because I have a lot of confidence with the Honorable Kindiki, I want you to answer me that question, because I know you're very capable, unlike what the Honorable Zamzam wants to intend, that you do not know how to do things. I know you are capable, competent, and the Honorable Kindiki is a straight shooting professor. Thank you very much.
Honorable Mawathe, is that Mawathe next to, or is it Basil?
Mawathe.
Mawathe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the question to the CS Interior and also the ICT CS. This was a very huge lapse on our security, because if we can allow some strangers to come in and harvest the identification biometrics of Kenyans, what will they be able to do next? The other question is, just a few days earlier, we had seen our systems, our IT systems being hacked. Yes, we may deny, we can use all good English, but our IT system were interrupted by strangers. What measures are we taking to ensure, one, that doesn't happen again? Two, as far as the Interior CS is concerned, what measures are we taking again as to ensure that the harvesting of people's biodata will not happen again? Also, where is this information being?
Yes, what's the out of order, Ruku?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the member in order to ask a question which already has been answered clearly by the two ministers, unless the member was not in this house or he was asleep when that question is asking, when it was being addressed by the two ministers in a very appropriate manner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. A member has a right to ask order. Order, Mawathe. A member has a right to ask a question if he is not satisfied with the previous answer. Indicate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Yes, Mawathe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on.
There's no way. There is no way that will allow somebody to go. No, Mr. Speaker, he must withdraw. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
It is very wrong. Let me start off.
I've already defended.
Yes, allow me. Just allow me, Mr. Speaker. It is very wrong for the mono to say something that is not derogatory about the other member. He must withdraw. Otherwise, we will engage. We are polite, but we are not afraid. We will engage. That's not the right way to go about it. He must
sit down. Honorable Mawathe. Order. Rindikiri. The last one. Ministers, get ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the two cabinet secretaries. This Data Protection Commission, under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit lie? And two, the Data Protection Unit has been carrying out investigations on the activities of the matter at heart. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask my question through you. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the two ministers. Under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit belong to? Mr. Speaker, we know This data protection unit in the former government was a unit that was being used for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, you know that this department was aware of the activities of this company at hand a few months ago. And up to now, we are being told this unit is still carrying out investigations. How confident can we be on the operations and the management of this unit? Because we haven't gotten a clear answer from them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, there is one question that I asked that have not been answered. And this question is very important because it touches on the matter and the people who are expecting money from this site. Honorable Speaker, the site, the WorldCoin site, right now has been pulled down. And this site, Honorable Speaker, is the one that is holding the 7,000 that these people who scanned their irises are expecting that money. Honorable Speaker, I'm asking a simple question. The shutting down of this site, does it relate in any way to the investigation that is ongoing? Or, Honorable Speaker, these people have taken what they wanted and they have ran away? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ministers.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mawade. Why is your hand up in the air all the time?
Honorable Speaker, in response to the question whether the country is safe, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House and the country that Kenya is safe. I also want to add that as we go towards a technological world, we must, as a nation, be alive to the fact that the risks that exist in the physical space are the same risks that exist in the digital space. So one of the reasons why perhaps this particular threat that we experienced looks a bit unique is because this is a new space. And Mr. Speaker, I want to prepare the country that even as we go towards embracing technology as we must be alive to the fact that there are risks in the digital space of an equal nature, if not greater, than the risks in the physical space. Honorable Speaker, another concern or supplementary issue which has been raised is the need for us to clarify whether we are prepared to deal with the risks in the digital space in the same manner as we have dealt with other threats to our national security. Mr. Speaker, sir, I confirm in the affirmative that the government will deal with all threats to our national security wherever they arise from, whether from the physical space, the digital space, from the technology space, or any space whatsoever. And therefore, this is a serious threat just like terrorism. It's a serious threat just like banditry. It's a serious threat just like trade in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. It is a threat just like those who want to intimidate us to use politics to commit crime. We will be firm with all threats to our national security wherever they arise. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on the money that was promised to the people of Kenya in exchange for their data. Honorable Speaker, I would not like to speak a lot on this area because we, as I have said, we have made great steps in the investigations, and I don't want to preempt investigations. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to say that from us, as security managers, as the Ministry of Interior, what raised the red flag was the monetary inducement. For us, that is one of the earliest indications. And the moment it became apparent that that exercise that started, as I said, it was done for 2 days, and on the third day, we were clear that crimes are being committed from where we sit. So that inducement for us is an area of concern. The other red flag, other than the area of inducement, is that we suspect again that our understanding of the data protection law is that the processors of data must obtain consent. We are of the opinion that if at all any consent was sought, which is doubtful, that consent was not informed consent. And that's why we believe we will nail down people, we'll pin down people. It's just a matter of time. Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on whether we are investing in crime prevention, and I want to answer in the affirmative. Because going forward, we are increasingly investing and concentrating on preventing crime before it happens, or arresting crime in the earliest opportunity, without again, and I think this is an important clarification, Honorable Speaker, without again overly interfering with the ordinary activities that are allowed under the law. So by the time we come in, we must have reasonable grounds to suspect that crimes are being committed. Honorable Speaker, the other issue has been raised is on why we took a bit of time and only acted after things started happening. I would like to say the activities of this entity are not just the subject matter of a security investigation in Kenya alone. There are many other countries around the world, a few countries, and many of them are first world countries who are asking the same questions that we are asking today, including 2 countries in Europe, 1 country in Asia. So I don't think it is fair to say that perhaps the Kenyan authorities have not been prudent or alert enough, because I know the same issues have been raised in the United Kingdom, in France, in India, in Germany, and a few other countries. Honorable Speaker, we are certain that we will bring accountability, and I think there is no cause of alarm. In terms of the data which have been harvested so far, Honorable Speaker, we have preservation orders that data should not be processed. We have a court order, but we are informed by the experts that even if such data is already stored in the cloud, we are informed that it is still retrievable. And therefore, again, there is no cause of alarm, because we already know our people, the numbers of our people that had already gone through this process. And then finally, Honorable Speaker, I would like to just assure the people of Kenya that I know we are a very political country, which is a good thing, because democracy is supposed to bring the kind of vibrancy that we see in our space here as a country. But I want to plead with the representatives of the people, the honorable members, that on matters national security, we try and remove our politics and our democratic engagement from that space. That way, we'll be able to preserve the country for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Speaker, I'm concerned that the cabinet secretaries are not treating this matter with the seriousness it deserves. Instead of getting responses as representatives of the people, we are getting lectures on things we know and the basis upon which we raised this issue with you. Honorable Speaker, I asked a simple question: whether this company as a foreign company is registered. And the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is saying it appears to be registered. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of ICT is saying it is registered, they are dealing with operational issues. Could we know? Because there is a legal consequence to a foreign company doing business in the country if they are not registered. In which case, Honorable Speaker, even before we check what they are doing with the data mined, the foreign agents of the company should be in court, and the fine is prescribed in Section 974. Not lectures on democracy, what people should do.
Honorable Kaluma, I thought the minister had earlier said that the WorldCoin Group are not registered in Kenya, but they have local collaborators. Isn't that what you said? Yes. So your pursuit should be, who are the local collaborators? Are they going to be charged with conspiracy to commit crimes and all those other chains of criminal activities? And I think that is up to the minister to answer. Owalo, can we hear from the second minister before, unless it's a serious point of order? Yes, Honorable
thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just arise on a point of order because, you know, the House has allowed the CSS to come and answer matters of concern to Kenyans. But the CS of Interior has just told us that he does not want issues that are political. Now, when members of this House ask questions, they're obviously political because we are representatives of the people. And I think that's what the Honorable Kaluma has alluded to. Instead of giving us a lecture, kindly just respond to our questions because there is no politics other than our representation of the people. Mr. Speaker, kindly guide the minister.
Zamzam, are you also on a point of order?
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi swali langu lilikuwa tu dhahiri kuwa Kenya tuko katika hali tata ikiwa anga zetu zitakuwa zimeingiliwa. Na mheshimiwa pale alinikosoa akaweka kama ambayo namdhulumu yule minister, ni yale aliyosema rais wa taifa hili kuwa hawa ministers kuna vitu vingi hawavielewi. Mimi nimeuliza hii security ya country ya nchi yetu iko sawa katika mikono yake kwa vile tumeingiliwa sana? Yeye amekuja anazungumza mambo ya siasa. Hapa si siasa kwa sababu hata mimi account yangu pia ilikuwa hacked. Ndio maana nauliza, si masala ya siasa.
Owalo, we can't have endless chains of points of order.
Mr. Speaker, I think we had already indicated earlier, and I want to repeat, that WorldCoin as an entity is not a legally registered company in Kenya. Through the registrar, the Business Registration Service. But it is registered as a data collector. In terms of operationalization, WorldCoin has been undertaking its activities through a different entity which is registered in Kenya. And it's on the basis of this.
Owalo, the issue that Kaluma was asking is, if this entity is not registered,
yes,
why did you allow an entity that has no legal status to start collecting data from Kenyans? I think that is the big question.
The issue here, Mr. Speaker, we have got many...
And hand in hand with that, so that we save time, because your colleague is waiting behind there. You should also answer Makali Mulus. And I, as the Speaker of this House, went and also did some research on Bitcoins. And there's nowhere in the world I found that to trade in cryptocurrency, you have to have your iris mined by any company. So that is also something that should assure Kenyans and members of parliament.
Mr. Speaker, WorldCoin was registered in Kenya as a data collector. not courtesy of the Business Registration Service. The prerequisites for purposes of registration as a data collector does not include or does not entail being registered as a company operating in Kenya. We are dealing with the digital space in this instance, Mr. Speaker. And there's many other companies operating in Kenya which are not legally registered by the Business Registration Service. The other issue was on the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, for purposes...
Naomi Wako, what is your point of order?
Thank you.
Hold the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to know why they have allowed them to collect our data. Simple. Yeah.
Minister, that is the bottom line, Minister.
Can we be a bit patient so that I do justice to this issue?
Okay.
The company that has been
give
collecting
the minister
data.
an opportunity to answer. You have asked him questions, let him answer.
The company that has been collecting the data in Kenya is not WorldCoin. It is a surrogate of WorldCoin, Mr. Speaker. And these people have been apprehended by the security agencies. Two, the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker, operates under policy guidance from the Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy.
Mary Kaitani, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Cabinet Secretary for ICT to say that they can actually allow companies to operate in this country without any registration? Because that is, we've had his statement, and in his statement he's actually purporting that people can actually come into this country and operate without any registration. Can he tell us, is it in order for a company to come and operate in this country without proper registrations and proper identification before operations begin?
Minister, go on. Honorable members, let him finish answering. If I find it necessary to do another round, I will. Honorable Eliud Owalo, are you done?
Yes,
you are consulting.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, we are consulting because, to the best of my mind, I am not sure that that obligation is in the current Data Protection Act, and for me, subject to confirmation, I just asked our PS here for ICT to confirm if that obligation is in the Data Protection Act in terms of procedure for registration. Mr. Speaker, protect me, I finish the answer, and then the member can, yeah. So, Mr. Speaker.
Let him finish. Let him finish order.
You want him to answer according to the government, not according to his mind. According to the government.
Go on, Kindiki.
Mr. Speaker, to the best of my mind, the Data Protection Act does not obligate the registration of data processors to be companies registered under the law of Kenya. And I've said with a caveat, I could be wrong. If it does, then definitely that is an oversight. If it does not, then it means we must amend the law going forward in consonance with the sentiments by the members to make sure that that becomes an accountability, an extra accountability layer for the future.
Yes, honorable members, I want to end here. Order. Yes, Kakai Bisau, what is your point of order? Minister, go hold your horses. I've given the floor to Bisau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sitting here and listening at the way the two ministers are answering these questions, first of all, we have to remember that on that particular day, our country was under attack. And in fact, we thank you for coming together because now you give an impression that at least you're coordinating issues. But before that, we thought that you're completely not coordinating issues. What I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the CS Internal Security talked about it happened on the first day, they investigated on the second day, on the third day. That shows a lot of laxity. We cannot have such an issue where we are under attack. It takes 3 days and we are saying we investigated. I know technology is moving at a very fast pace. And this is not the first or the last time. We're going to have most of these things happening. So what I would like the ministers to tell us, what are the mitigation measures you are putting in place so that when we have another technology attack, we are able to ensure that Kenyans are not suffering. And remember, those that were affected mostly were the people under the pyramid because there was some token given to them. So tell us what you're going to put in place to mitigate this. And lastly, we would like the perpetrators to be tabled and made it public. Thank you.
Kangoko Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the confusion we saw between the two cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, is again has been brought to this House. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest it this way, Honorable Speaker. In fact, the more they explain to us or they answer these questions, the more we are confused. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest if you give them more time, they go and reconcile their thoughts. At the same time, they look at the facts and then bring a correct information to this House, Mr. Speaker. Because from the start of this session, Mr. Speaker, the cabinet secretaries have been taking us around. At one point, they are saying the companies are not registered. And at another point, they are saying they are registered, but only for data collections. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to get correct answers from the cabinet secretaries now. I would ask that, Mr. Speaker, you direct that they go back and they bring us a correct and satisfactory answers.
All the honorable members, for avoidance of doubt, honorable ministers, the Companies Act, Section 974, says as follows. A foreign company shall not carry on business in Kenya unless it's repeated, it is registered under this part or it has applied to be so registered and the application is pending. So what WorldCoin is doing is illegal, even under the Companies Act, but I agree with Kangoko Bowen that ministers, you can see and feel, you can stop disparaging our ministers. You can see and feel the representatives of the people from where they sit. And I think this was captured by Makali Mulu. What has the mining of Kenyans' iris got to do with cryptocurrency? I think that is the issue. And I agree with you, Professor Kindiki, that criminal acts have been committed and that you are investigating. I'll give you another week and come back and give more cogent answers because like the young MP from John Paul, you are from Igembe, has been agitatingly coming to whisper to me that KICC is a government property. Who licensed these people to have long queues of Kenyans on government premises Those are some of the questions MPs were asking. And I would want to encourage you as our ministers, whose responsibility is to account to the people of Kenya through their representatives in this House, to get out to the bottom of this matter. And I also encourage you, ministers, that your multi-agency investigation team seem to include the Data Protection Commission, which actually gave authority to these people to do what they were doing. So they cannot possibly investigate themselves. And therefore, I would encourage you that for purposes of impartiality and openness, you may have to exclude them from your multi-agency team because you might find them culpable as well. I want us to end here so that we get in the Minister for Defense. Ministers, you are released to go. You will come back next Wednesday. And the next time you come, I encourage you, because harmonize your thinking so that when you come, we have at least one of you speaking on behalf of both of you. Professor Kindiki?
Sorry, Speaker, to request to speak after you've already given your directive. I wanted to suggest as follows.
Yes.
This matter is very complex.
Yes.
As you have already noted about the KICC facility and so on, it involves so many ministries, departments, agencies.
Yes.
This is my fear, Honorable Speaker, that unless maybe you can accommodate all the agencies here, I would have suggested, because the members have raised very valid issues and I agree with them, this is a very serious national issue. If there is a way to package there is the security aspect, there is the ICT aspect, there is the business registration aspect, there is so many other things. And perhaps maybe that way we can help the members so that we don't bore you and we don't come here and because these answers are all over the place and it's not enough for one ministry or even the two ministries to respond conclusively, including our agencies. I wanted to plead, Speaker, you consider whether there is another way in which we can provide the same information to the House, maybe separately, maybe at departmental committees and so forth. And finally, from where we sit, we are willing to be of service to the House as many times as possible, but in a more organized way so that we also don't waste Parliament's time with endless repetition of the same subject.
I get your point, Minister. What I'll do, I have enough people to segregate the issues, and I'll give you advice through formal communication. As you leave now, the direction is that you come on Wednesday, but in between, once we are able to segregate the issues to see which ones are security, which ones are ICT, they look intertwined now, and which ones are other departments, we'll be able to guide you accordingly. You have a valid concern. Colin, yes, Shakil, I want to close this.
It was very important, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg your indulgence. The issue of the information that has already been mined, I wanted to ask if the Minister for IT and Internal Security, both of them, can make applications wherever that information has gone, because they have a way to find what information was routed to where, to make an application at the destination of that information for it to be held to our order. I don't know. The
Minister already said that they have gone to court. They have orders to preserve the data already mined.
That is
and that even the data stored in the clouds is retrievable.
But that's a court in Kenya, sir. What we will hear later on is the United Kingdom court or the American court. No application was served upon them, and they as such could not retain that information. So I was urging that since we can find out, even our telephone calls, we can know where it's going, the information that has been transmitted already should be now, we identify where it is and put an application in the court of that
The
country.
ministers have heard you. Ministers,
Thank you, sir.
If the agencies will extend extra territorial investigations, so be it. I'm sure you have got collaborative processes with other agencies elsewhere. Can you usher in the Minister for Defense? The Minister for Security comes in, I acknowledge the following schools in the public and speakers gallery: Elangata Enterit Primary School from Narok, South Narok; All Saints Kamoyo Preparatory School from Mosop, Nandi; Kapchoge Primary School from Marakwet East, Elgeyo Marakwet; Sitotwo Primary School from Keio South, Elgeyo Marakwet; Kapkoiga Girls High School from Keses, Uasin Gishu. On my behalf and on your behalf, I welcome the schools to the House of Parliament. Honorable members, the Minister for Defense is now in the House. Where's my order paper? Minister, we have welcome to the House, a house where you have been for years. You are now back with a different hat. You are now here to answer questions. I will start with the question number 008 of 2023. The member for Ugunja, Opio Andai. The chair is aware that Opio Andai is not in the House. Him and his majority counterpart are engaged in discussions elsewhere on for purposes of bringing tranquility in the country. Is there anybody who has been tasked to ask that question on his behalf? Honorable Mwenje, I will only allow you if you have instructions in writing. If you don't have instructions in writing, I'll store the question in purgatory until he comes back. Yes. Yes. If you have no written instructions, you have no authority to ask the question. The chair must take responsibility that in case anything untoward is said, we hold the members responsible, and the member will come back and say you had no authority to ask the question. And you'll have no defense. So we leave it there. The question is not dropped, it's put aside. And in the event Honorable Duale doesn't come to the House so soon, I'll direct him to send a written answer to the Honorable Opio Andai. Honorable Minister, you'll send a written answer to the Honorable Andai. Next question is a question 229 of 2023, member from Mwingi North, Paul Nzengu. Paul Nzengu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I do not have a hard copy of the question. I was looking for it, but I cannot find it. So I don't know whether. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got the question. The question is to the Cabinet Secretary, Defense. And the question is, outline outline any peaceful milestone and other achievement attained by sending our Kenya Defense Forces troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And number 2 is explain the exit strategy for our troops from DRC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I am appearing before the House in accordance with the Standing Order 42, Section A to G. And Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I'm coming back home. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Defense Forces who are serving under the East Africa Community Regional Force are in DRC and more so in Eastern Congo, following a resolution of heads of state and government after admitting DRC to be a member of the East Africa Community in their 22nd Ordinary Summit of the EAC Heads of State and Government held in Arusha on 22nd July 2022, and it approved, among many other interventions, the immediate establishment and deployment of EAC Regional Force in Eastern DRC. Mr. Speaker, the mandate was to help deal with negative forces in the spirit of a collective security under a two-pronged approach, the political and the military track. In the context of the military track, Mr. Speaker, which I have the benefit to discuss and give an answer to this House, the EAC Chief of Defense Forces implemented the decision of establishing a regional force that was subsequently approved by the heads of state. Thereafter, the Kenya Defense Forces deployed in DRC from August of 2022 to operate specifically in Eastern DRC alongside troops from the Republic of Burundi, Republic of South Sudan, and the Republic of Uganda. Mr. Speaker, in this deployment, the Kenya Defense Forces contingent to ICRAF went through the legal framework and the constitution of our country, in the sense that the National Security Council approved it, and Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly, this august House, in conformity with the provisions of Article 240, subsection 8A of our Constitution, empowered the National Security Council and the Ministry of Defense to deploy national forces and also KDF outside our country for both regional and international peace support operations, and that approval was granted, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the East Africa Community Regional Force, which Kenya Defense Forces is part of, is premised on Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, which encourages regional mechanisms to deal with matters relating to the maintenance of international peace and security before referring the matter to the UN Security Council. Speaker, let me now come to the question. What are the milestones and the achievements of the Kenya Defense Forces who are serving under the East Africa Regional Force? So, Speaker, prior to the KDF deployment in DRC, the M23, which is one of the main armed groups in North Kivu, was at the threshold of capturing a very important city called Goma, which has a strategic location and has a major population center. There were only 7 kilometers to that city. An occurrence that could have destabilized DRC and the whole of this region. Because, Mr. Speaker, Eastern Congo primarily uses the port of Mombasa. So there was an economic interest. there was a regional interest in terms of peace and security. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, before our deployment, the main supply routes were inaccessible due to security. There was a lot of interruption on the food supply and humanitarian operations in that part of DRC. There was huge humanitarian crisis, a lot of IDPs, Mr. Speaker, and this precipitated the consequence of deploying the ICRAF in that area, and these are the achievements that we can today be proud of. Speaker, number one, the M23 armed groups, particularly who were in the area where the Kenya Defense Forces are stationed, withdrew from their previously occupied territories, including safeguarding the areas around Goma, and they withdrew from the areas within the ICRAF joint operation area, which was more so the KDF area, and this relieved the pressure on the government of DRC. Hence, the threat on Goma was saved from the control of M23. This created, Mr. Speaker, an elusive window for the settlement of the security challenges following years of conflict. Two, Mr. Speaker, the ceasefire between M23 and the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was achieved because of the presence of KDF, and Mr. Speaker, let me say it, that the force commander of the East African Community Regional Force is a Kenyan. General Nyaga was there, Major General Nyaga, and today we have Major General Kiugu. This has really allowed the political track to take shape. It facilitated the commencement of the political track, which is spearheaded by the former President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, as a facilitator. M23, Mr. Speaker, has indicated conditional readiness for pre-cantonment, which is a critical step towards the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of those communities which have been affected by the security situation in eastern DRC. Three, Mr. Speaker, through the East Africa Regional Force, which Kenya is part of it, the Bunagana, Bunagabo, Kibumba, Goma, and Kichanga, Sake, Goma, main supply routes are now active, hence the enabling movement of commerce, service, and people, and more importantly, facilitating the access of humanitarian supplies. Furtherly, Mr. Speaker, the deployment led to the gradual return of refugees and IDPs to areas which are now under the East Africa Regional Force control, resulting to the reduction in crime and violence against non-combatants, this being a critical mandate of the protection of civilians. Mr. Speaker, I was there last week. 3 days I spent in Eastern DRC in visiting our troops and talking to the leadership, my colleagues in DRC. You'll see there's a sense of stability and a protection of civilians from armed conflict. Mr. Speaker, the East African Regional Force has also continued to support the program, which was part of what the head of state agreed, for setting up the disarmament areas, for establishing the infrastructure for demobilization of all the armed groups, and for establishing community rehabilitation and stabilization programs. A key leader engagements within the joint operation area. So, Speaker, this is in support of the peaceful coexistence among communities while progressively facilitating the restoration of good governance and the reestablishment of social amenities such as schools and health sectors in those areas before the deployment of Kenyan Defense Forces serving under ICRAF. Speaker, ICRAF jointly with the MONUSCO, and MONUSCO is the UN United Nations mission in Congo, and the representative of the government of DRC have identified suitable, important pre-cantonment sites at Bunagabo, which has enabled the government of DRC to initiate the demobilization, the disarmament, and the community rehabilitation and stabilization. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the last achievement is the initial deployment of the Kenyan contingent as the first boots on the ground in the joint operation area, has secured and has set conditions for deployment of other contingents in the sectoral theater or sector of North Kivu, meaning Kenya has demonstrated much needed leadership in a crisis situation. And what I mean is, it was KDF that first went to that theater for the first 4 months. It's after the success, the achievements, that our colleagues from Burundi, South Sudan, and Uganda are now part of the wider multinational force in that area. Speaker, the second part of the question was, what is our exit strategy for KDF troops who are serving under the aircraft from DRC? Speaker, the East African Regional Force was first deployed for an initial mandate of 6 months that lapsed on 30th March 2023. And thereafter, under the leadership of the heads of state, it was extended to 8th of September 2023. In effort to chart the way forward, Mr. Speaker, a technical evaluation team comprising of experts from all our member states, the East African member states, was constituted in the last heads of state and government summit in Bujumbura, and their main role was to assess the aircraft mandate, assess its achievement, and assess its way forward within the mandate implementation, and render a report to the EAC Sectoral Council of Defense Ministers, which, Mr. Speaker, will take place between the 21st and 23rd of this month in Nairobi. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, based on that report, on the restoration of peace and security in Eastern DRC, will be a desired condition in which will tell us the military success and the eventual exit from the mission. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, in my concluding remark, the conditions could culminate in Kenya's exit, an aircraft exit, because it is not Kenya which is exiting. It is all the multinational troops within aircraft, Kenya included, that will exit. So if the East African community heads of state and government fail to get renewal of the aircraft current mandate upon its expiry on 8th of September, if for any reason the government of Kenya decides to withdraw KDF, and one of the reasons can be even this House through a motion asking the executive and the National Security Council with very good reasons to withdraw from Eastern Congo and from the multinational force, in the event the government of Democratic Republic of Congo withdraws its consent and decides that aircraft should leave, and in the event the mission becomes untenable in terms of security. Those are the scenarios in which KDF can be withdrawn from their performance under the East Africa Regional Force. So, Mr. Speaker, our mandate is until 8th of September. At the Defense Headquarters, we always have a plan to make sure that in the event of the 4 scenarios, we will bring back our troops safe and sound. And Mr. Speaker, finally, it is not only KDF troops are not only serving under aircraft. Within the DRC, Eastern Congo, under the UN mission, we have over 250 quick response team, our special forces serving under the UN. We have our communication and signal battalion serving under the UN mandate in Congo. Those are working within the confine of the US mandate. But for ICRAF, our mandate ends on 8th of September. The Council of Ministers, which I am a member, will sit on 21st and 23rd to look at the technical team evaluating the achievements and the way forward. And then the heads of states will meet 1 week later. If they give the extension, well and good, we'll be in DRC because we have done a lot. If the extension is not granted, I want to assure this House and the country that our troops will come back home safe and secure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Zengo, I think it's as clear as that. Do you want supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the CS for the information that he has given us. This question came up because there were concerns that since when Kenyan troops went to DRC, the relationship between Kenyans and Congolese people started being wasted, and it is a concern whether this intervention, is it beneficial or not? Number two, Mr. Speaker, the CS has told us that all the IDPs have moved. I want him to confirm whether the IDPs have really agreed to go back to Goma, because the information that I have, which I cannot prove whether it's true or not, but since he has been there in the last 1 week, can he confirm to the House that indeed, because of Kenyan troops and the ICRAF, that group of East Africa, that really the IDPs have gone back? And thirdly, at what point did... this is important, Mr. Speaker, because there is a time when the Congolese president had to ask for reinforcement from SADC, the Southern African countries, to bring their troops. Did we fail? Did our troops fail? Or what necessitated the reinforcement from southern countries? Thank you.
I'll give one joyrider. One joyrider. Member for Migori.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First, I would like to congratulate our Kenyan soldiers who are in DRC. They are trying their best. But I would like to ask the Honorable Minister that since our troops went to DRC, we have seen refugees coming from DRC and flocking into Kenya. I had an opportunity to go to Kitale Showground and meet the refugees from DRC. The purpose of sending our troops was to help DRC get peace in their own country. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Because even in the recent days, there was news that there were some places that the rebels attacked, women were raped, children were killed. Places like Rugari, Kitashanga, Mweso, Kiwanja, they were attacked. And the majority who were killed were women and children. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Or if not, why don't you look for another way out to help DRC so that they get their peace and stop being refugees in other people's country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, Ferdinand, you're the second joyrider, second and last.
Thank you very much, Messieurs, for defense. And I think it is just common sense, much as there could be some complaint, but I want to agree with you that the Eastern DRC actually had problems. And I think we read widely, Mr. Speaker, the opening of the Eastern DRC has actually enabled us to get most of the export coming through Mombasa to DRC and growth. So I want to take this opportunity and thank you, the Minister, for doing what you are doing, and I think what she's saying is true, I've also heard the same thing, but those could be just noises in the past. But as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of benefit, and in fact, that has enabled DRC to join the East African community, and we actually, there's a way we're opening up the region. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Minister for the work being done. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That's not a question, it's a compliment. Owen Baya, you'll be the last.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to ask this question to the Honorable Minister, who is a ranking member of this House. Who was, I think that rank does not go away, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask about the Banyamulenge in Eastern DRC, that they have been excluded from the talks that are being headed by the Kenyan delegation led by the former president. The Banyamulenge, as you know, are cross-cutting. They're both in Rwanda and in Congo. But in these talks, they're one of the oppressed organization or community. And unfortunately, when our former president held the talks, they were removed from the table. And they are suffering. And their leader, Professor Lazare, is incarcerated and nobody knows where he is. And they have been asking Kenya to help them. Unfortunately, this information doesn't seem to reach the former president's desk because they have been blocked. Because it is said the former president is friends with the current president of Congo, and therefore he is more siding with the current Congo regime other than accommodating the other. I do not know whether President Uhuru is being an impartial arbiter in the DRC Congo, or he has taken sides and therefore blocking other people who are aggrieved from accessing the negotiation table. And one of the people is Lazare Rukunda. He's a professor. He runs a small university. He was arrested last 2 weeks and he's been incarcerated. He's been held in Comunicando and his family doesn't know where he is. I think, Honorable Minister, you have a responsibility to ensure that Kenya is a good arbiter in these discussions and that everybody in the Congo is protected. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, answer those short questions very quickly. We got the next question.
Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Member for Mwingi on the IDPs. Not all IDPs have gone back. It's a huge crisis. If you go to the road between Goma to Kibumba, you'll find IDPs. But gradually, now that there's peace and security and stability, you will find, particularly where the Kenyan troops are, people are going back to their homes. People are planting their farms. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, my good sister, the Member of Parliament for Migori, really asked me about the issues to do with women and all that. I think one of the mandates that ICRAF and most of the Kenya Defense Forces have done and achieved in Eastern DRC, and I saw it, that they are really taking care of the most vulnerable parts of the society, which is one of the things that we can credit our forces, protecting women, children, elderly. In fact, 2 days ago, Mr. Speaker, our own forces helped a lady deliver twins in an area called Kibumba. They are providing water. And even what the member from Mwingi, Mheshimiwa Mwingi North said, is that the clip of the video you see going round, those are old clips. If a committee of this House happen to visit, you'll see the Kenyan troops who have been there are very much welcome. And if you go to these cities, Kisangani, Beni, Goma, you'll find huge Kenyan businesses in the petroleum sector, in commodities. So, and that part of the world, again, is an area where Swahili is spoken. Honorable Baya, Mr. Speaker, I really want you to indulge me and maybe invoke the standing order. That is an internal political matter of DRC. And I don't want to discuss it because you are a long-ranking foreign minister. I don't want to be quoted that I am discussing personal, political, internal issues of the government. Our troops are in that theater. They are under the DRC government, I don't want to take and discuss politics. So you'll ask me about Banyamulenge. They are known there as M23. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say anything on that. Maybe when he gets an opportunity and get the former president who is leading the political track, then they can have a chat. So I can't discuss, Mr. Speaker. You will forgive me. Of course, the one for Honorable Ferdinand, Mr. Speaker, was a comment. But Mr. Speaker, I want to say it off the cuff. Apart from restoring peace and security in DRC, in Somalia, in all our regional, our neighbors, Mr. Speaker, we have an economic interest. That part of DRC is where the port of Mombasa is a key player, where many Kenyans, Equity Bank, Mr. Speaker, is the largest bank in that country. KCB, Mr. Speaker, has bought the biggest local bank there. There are many Kenyans. So apart from making sure a stable, secure DRC, Mr. Speaker, is good for the economy of our country, is good for regional trade, is good for regional integration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Rook, what is it? I want to close this and go to the next question.
Mr. Speaker, for any nation which has developed, most of them, about 80% of the developed nation, they have military as part of the economic plan. And it will be important if the minister can stipulate clearly what is the military's, how the government is integrating military into the economic plan so that we can be able to come out of poverty as a nation. It is important when the military is deployed in Congo, in Somalia, and many other countries around Africa, we need, as a nation, to be able to know clearly how does that fit within our economic plan. It is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, and this is something which has been avoided over the years by the Kenyan military. It is important for the Kenyan military to ensure it is playing a critical role in the economic development of this country, not only the security. And this is a matter of history for those who are students of international relations and diplomacy, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mjomba, what is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me first to congratulate the Minister, the Honorable Ranking Member of this House. I believe his ranking status is still active, for executing the questions of the day in a very well-informed manner. But, Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the Honorable Bare Duale to tell us what are the deliverables of the forces when they go to such missions, and how do they measure deliverables in comparison with our expectations as a country, just like my colleague, Honorable Ruko, has asked. What are our gains when we send these troops to those countries? How do we benefit as Kenya? Other than just saying that we have regional peace, how do the individual troops members, our soldiers, benefit when they go to these missions? Honorable Speaker, I would also want to ask Honorable Duare, since November 22, what have we achieved as Kenya since we sent these troops to the regions? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Regional obligations do not necessarily carry economic benefits. It is a moral duty to your region. Yes, what is your point of order?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, you partly responded to my matter of concern. My worry is that there are matters of the nation we could be discussing in the context of our regional intervention, which may not be prudent. In fact, may call for in-camera proceedings if necessary. So I wanted to request your intervention, Honorable Speaker, that those matters we are raising, both by the Honorable Ruku and my good sister Muchomba, could be collateral. They are not matters to be discussed in the context that we are proceeding now. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
We'll go to question 230 of 2023. Honorable Duale, if you wish, you can write it to Honorable Ruku. and tell him the economic benefits of the military. And Honorable Mchomba, our military don't go out to protect us for any personal gain. It's a patriotic duty. Honorable Lotte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Noting that the military recruitment will be starting on the 28th of this month, and there's a lot of anxiety from the young people, I'll wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary the following questions. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measures that are put in place to curb serious malpractices like bribery and nepotism during the military recruitments, so as to accord poor but well-deserving Kenyans fair opportunities in the recruitments? 2, I wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary to explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure that the Kenyans from the marginalized regions, such as Kachaliba and others, and Turkana, and all those other regions, are considered in the ever-elusive military jobs. And the last one, I'll wish the Cabinet Secretary to explain mechanisms that the government has put in place to enable Kenyans to report on malpractices that are witnessed during the subsequent military recruitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Just hold for a minute. Allow me to acknowledge the following schools in the gallery. Soliat Boys High School, Soin Sigoet, Kericho. FIM School, Kimilili, Bungoma. Mukinyai Primary School, Molo, Nakuru. Hekima Marigat School Primary, Baringo South, Baringo. And these are primary schools from Molo. Mwangi Muchuki Primary School, Rombei Primary School, Lawina Primary School, Arimi Primary School, all from Molo constituency, Nakuru County. Minister, indulge me to give the member for Molo 1 minute on behalf of all of us to acknowledge the presence of those schools.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It's indeed a great privilege. We have 274 pupils from different primary schools in Molo constituency, starting with my own primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. Honorable Speaker, that's one of the most public school in Molo that was hardly known, that produced the Member of Parliament for Molo constituency and the chair for the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning. It is this school that produced the first ever MP to be re-elected since last 30 years, and therefore I'm very privileged to associate with this, my former primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. It's a great encouragement to the other schools, Mukinyai Primary School, Rombei Primary School, Lawina Primary School, and that's why, Honorable Speaker, every time I get a chance, I invite them to come to Nairobi to observe Parliament proceedings, to see Nairobi. Because, Honorable Speaker, in my vernacular there is a proverb that says, he who does not travel thinks his mom is the only one who is able to cook. So it is their chance to come and see Nairobi and aspire to also be members of Parliament, to be governors, to be president, to be anything that they dream to be. Because if the son of a single mother from a humble background from Mukinyai who went to public primary school, public secondary school, public university can be where he is now, then not even the sky is the limit. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence.
Well, Minister, congratulations for your journey in life. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in answering this question, I really want to urge the country and the House that they should not charge us, they should not use the benchmark of the previous recruitment. It's the first recruitment under my leadership, and it's the first recruitment under this administration. Mr. Speaker, KDF recruitment process is guided by the Constitution of Kenya, specifically Article 10(1)(c), that protects and provides for national values and principles of governance, which will bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them makes or implements public policy decisions. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense is determined to protect Kenyans from fraudsters posing as KDF recruitment agents, bent on marring on an open, free, fair recruitment process. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of every recruitment cycle, eligible applicants are provided with very clear guidelines on when and where they should present themselves and how they should apply to join Kenya Defense Forces. Indeed, the public is always advised during the recruitment drive to avoid giving bribes and other favors to impersonate in the pretext that they will be assisted in securing employment in the KDF. Mr. Speaker, the aforestated notwithstanding, there are isolated instances where KDF personnel have been involved in recruitment malpractices. And to serve as a deterrent, Mr. Speaker, all suspected cases have been thoroughly investigated. Those found culpable subjected to judicial process in the form of court-martial, often leading to dismissal from service or imprisonment. And Mr. Speaker, the answer which I have provided to this House, I think in about 5 to 6 copies, I have attached Annex A that provides into the status of the completed and ongoing cases of individual officers and more so general officers who were prosecuted since the last recruitment, which was in July of last year. Mr. Speaker, that annex will show you the rank of those officers. It will show you the crime they committed, and all these officers faced the court-martial precisely because of recruitment. Mr. Speaker, the second question was explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure Kenyans from marginalized communities and regions are considered elusive for military jobs. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, I think the devolution was to solve marginalization. I am sure there are issues, but I think the term marginalized, Mr. Speaker, will be a thing of the past very soon. Mr. Speaker, KDF is conscious of the country's ethnic diversity and always promotes a national outlook among its ranks. And even you look at the hierarchy and the leadership of Kenya Defense Forces, Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, represents the face of Kenya in terms of diversity, tribe, religion, and the region they come from. This is predicted, Mr. Speaker, is predicated on the Defense Forces' primary role of defending and protecting the country on the basis of inclusion. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the distribution of slots, selection, and development of KDF human capital is inherently reflected on the face of Kenya on the account of equity as required in our Constitution. One of the guiding principles, Mr. Speaker, in KDF Act of 2012 that stipulates that recruitment must reflect the diversity of the Kenyan people in an allowable proportion that ensures that the composition of the command of KDF also embraces the principle of equity and inclusivity. And Mr. Speaker, since I took over as a Minister for Defense, one of the principles that I say people will remember for me as a Minister for Defense is to make sure that the rank and the leadership of Kenya Defense Forces reflects the diversity and the communities in our country. Therefore, equitable distribution of slots to counties, sub-counties, and divisions in some places always are computed at the planning phase of the recruitment cycle, and they are based on the following parameters. Number one, national population according to the latest national census. 2, population and demography in each county, sub-county, and in some cases, some divisions. 3, KDF human resource needs on the current manning levels among KDF officers, service members, and constables. 4, current number of officers, service members, and constables from each sub-county. So, Mr. Speaker, we look at holistically the numbers of our human resource in Kenya Defence Forces. And based on that, we will look at the numbers from each sub-county. And based on that, we will create slots for every county, for every sub-county in our country. So, Speaker, sometimes we look at the socio-political variables, rural versus urban, marginalized groups and indigenous groups. Speaker, finally, the recruiting officers are required to submit to the Defense Headquarters daily returns to satisfy the defense leadership that quotas are being enforced. So, Mr. Speaker, for example, in a sub-county in Bungoma County, if the number to be recruited were 8 or 10, Speaker, just like IBC, we have a command center at the Defense Headquarters. On real time, the moment those 7 are recruited, their ID, their names, their age, everything is submitted to make sure that in between, Mr. Speaker, there were many times people were making were using a lot of corruption, where 7 people will go to the recruitment center, they are told you have been taken, and in the evening they are chased away and replaced with other people. Speaker, I really want to assure you, this House, because we are oversighted by the representative of the people. Myself and General Ogola will make sure that the moment the 7 are recruited, our command center at the Defense Headquarters in real time will receive them so that nobody in this recruitment can change anything. And I want the House to take me to charge on that matter, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, finally, was the question of explaining the mechanism that government has put in place to enable Kenyans report malpractices witnessed during subsequent. Speaker, first, before I tell the country the mechanism, I want Kenyans not to bribe our officers. That's the beginning. Because the bribe taker, there must be the giver. So there are people, I'm sure, who are watching me. Some of them are conmen, some of them are fraudsters, some of them make cash during the recruitment. Parents, I want to talk to the parents of Kenya. Don't bribe anybody. Let your son and daughter present themselves at the recruiting center, and our officers are under obligation to make sure that each and every Kenyan is given an opportunity. Speaker, the Kenya Defence Forces recruitment drive has a lot of adverts, free to all eligible candidates. Members of the public are warned against engaging in malpractices, a view to influence the process, and they're encouraged to report any suspicious. So, Speaker, at all our recruitment centers, recruiting officers are required to make verbal announcement reiterating the implication of non-compliance with a warning to desist. So, Speaker, this year we have asked AAC and the DCI and all other civil society organizations within the locality we are recruiting to make sure that they are on standby and our members, our officers are not vulnerable. We will give a call number where even parents can call and say there was a fraud going on. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to ask this House that judge us, judge me, Judge General Ogola, and the entire leadership of Kenya Defence Forces on this recruitment. And I'm sure there will be a difference this time round.
Lano Siri, Badi Twalib. Bet Simba of Kisauni.
Yes. Asante sana, Mheshimiwa.
Hold Bet Simba, hold, you are a joyrider. The first bite must go to the member who asked the question to ask a supplemental. I'll come back to you immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really want to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the exposition of the fact that we want to change the face of the military recruitment, especially the KDF. That is a very good admission and also a very good way forward from the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as we speak today, I think I speak on behalf of many of the parents, and the reason why I raise this question is on the basis that from the villages where I come from, parents are selling land now, and there is a price already for the job. So what the Cabinet Secretary has said is good, but I want it to be put in practice, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, because it is very easy to speak, but the young people that are actually agitated and worried want a voice that comes to you, and that is the voice that Lotte today is giving before you. 2, when we talk about marginalization, and we say that because of the sub-counties and the counties and the sub-locations, that positions are going to be given, I wish the Cabinet Secretary to note that even within their locations, there are people that are marginalized from there. So that if you go to a place like Kacheliba, for example, there will be the powerful people that will come from wherever to take those jobs from them because they are weak. I want the Cabinet Secretary to assure this House and to assure Kenyans that what you have said today, that there is no bribery. Because the challenge, Cabinet Secretary, is when we tell people do not bribe, and then you don't bribe, and the other person bribes and have the child go to the military recruitment, the one who did not give bribe will feel disadvantaged, Mr. Speaker. I think then it's the onset of the Cabinet Secretary to ensure that we, this particular time, see that there is no person that is going to be taken because of a bribe. I wish to say this on behalf of these members. These are the representative of the people, Cabinet Secretary. Can they be allowed? Can they be allowed, just alongside the ESCC and the DCIs, to be within the precinct of the recruitment center, so that they can also be an eye to report to this House should there be malpractices? Thank you.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa nafasi ya kuuliza swali la ziada. Waziri wa Ulinzi, tuna imani na wewe na tuna imani kwamba kutapatikana mabadiliko. Lakini swali langu ni, nimekusikia ukisema kwamba usajili wa wanajeshi uko huru. Lakini kuna Wakenya ambao wanakatazwa kujiunga na jeshi kwa sababu ya kimo chao. Na si wagonjwa, wanavaa viatu, wanavaa masuruale na wana afya, lakini wanakataliwa kwa sababu wanaambiwa ni wafupi. Na hiyo ufupi wao ni kwamba ni Mungu amewaomba hivyo. Kwa nini mnawanyima wasiunge na jeshi? Na hao na imani kama mnaona ni wafupi, hao ndio wanaweza kumfikia adui bila kuonekana. Kama Wachina ni wafupi zaidi na ni wanajeshi, kwa nini tunawanyima wa Kenya wanajisikia kama wao hawawezi kulinda taifa lao? Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Waziri, hilo jambo litakaniwa tuliangalia kwa makini sana na tuseme uhuru kama hao tumeweka nje. Asante sana.
Thank you. I intended only one joyrider. Yegon. Okay. Give Yegon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me also this opportunity to contribute.
It's not a contribution.
No, sorry. To ask the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary about, as late as yesterday, the day before yesterday when I was coming from my constituency, I got some people who came, around 2 of them, and asked me that there is a recruitment of Kenya Defence Forces which is going on, which has been advised so far. And what happened is that they are asking me, how can you help? They were even coming to ask me for money, saying, give me, let's say, 300,000. I've gotten 100,000. I need another 300,000 so that my person can be employed. What I want to ask the Minister is, what measures have you taken to make sure that these people have not been exploited? Because many people have been extorted money and they are not getting those jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Elisha, although he had actually dealt with your question. Elisha? But here, Elisha, you are giving to the wrong address. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to congratulate the CS for the statement. And looking at his history of competence, I'm confident that this recruitment will be fair. On behalf of the people of Game, what I'm asking, the list of recruitment centers, Game has 2 sub-counties. They've only highlighted Game Yala. I request that Game Wagai equally be highlighted as a recruitment center. And finally, for a long time, the people of Game, very minimal numbers were taken. But as years, I hope that this time, look at the history, you can compensate the people of Game and the numbers. And even if the soldiers, your recruiting officers who will be in Game, looking at the competence of those they are going to recruit, I hope that you can negate the appearance of the teeth, because that necessarily does not help carrying a weapon. Thank you, but yes, and the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir.
CNN.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Speaker, I just want to ask our Honorable CS, a ranking member we have served together. In the recent past, Mwingi West, during the recruitment of cadet officers, we have not had even an opportunity to have one representative in the military. What is the CS doing this time around to ensure we are included in this recruitment this year? Thank you. Cadet officer.
McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am one person who has always believed one Aden Bare Duale for high competence of doing his job. And this being our first recruitment as Kenya Kwanza government, I want to ask the minister to really be very vigilant. You need to do work on cyber crime. Mr. Speaker, I want to report to this House that someone hacked my Facebook account, my photograph. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it's very important.
And report to the police. Ask
I have already reported, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
And it is very important for members to know that people who are calling people using very important security. Yes. So my question is, in Baringo North, we have 5 divisions. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, when it comes to recruitment, one division is not being counted. It is being included as Kabartonjo, and yet we have Saimosoi division, fully with a DO, and when it comes to recruitment, for the last very many years, Mr. Speaker, that division called Saimosoi bordering like Baringo has not had an opportunity to get even a single person to be recruited into the military. Can this time, when the officers come to the ground, Mr. Speaker, ensure that as they announce the number of slots in Baringo North, then they can be shared among the 5 divisions actually in Baringo North, Mr. Speaker, so that it is fair, and then ensure what is the problem in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is can recruitment be done and finished during the day? Mr. Speaker, immediately it goes beyond 6 p.m. That is the beginning of corruption. So can this time end at 4 across the Republic so that matters become sincere?
They don't need 2 joyriders. Now everybody wants to joyride. Yes. Kirima, I'm not giving you. You are soliciting. Okay. Is that Kagombe?